There are 8 incidences in my life which I want to share with you. The first time I talked about this was 7 years ago. I was speaking at one of the largest medical conferences in India where they asked me to give an oration. And I asked them, is it possible if I don't talk medicine? And they said it was pretty okay. And I spoke these things which I believe had a very, very powerful kind of a connect with people around. And later that, I spoke several times in many, many places. But today I'm going to tell all these stories in context with the Bible, and I hope that y'all will like it. So let me start with the introduction. It tells these are 8 incidences in my life. Incidences that tell us the way God truly knew us even before we were born. He planned things for us in ways that He cannot imagine or understand to make us what we were meant to be. And through this journey, I hope that you will learn something too. The first one I title is the dunce in class. We were a family of 4. My younger brother was born actually kind of premature. I think he was born at some 32 weeks or 34 weeks, I'm not sure. But this guy was exceptionally bright. I mean, he was bright, means by the time of 1 year old, he could actually speak well. By the time he was 14 or 15 days, years or months old, he could almost give a sermon. I'm not joking. I mean, he could talk so much. He was very, very impressive. So when any guests come home, my brother Jacob would be basically this guy who was impressing everyone. And then I was born 2 years later. I started talking when I was 3.5 years, 3 and somewhere close to 4. I mean, I never stopped after that. That's a different story. But the bottom line was, I was just not impressive in anywhere. Even when I talked, I used to always tell all kind of stupid things, I mean, it was that bad, I was just crazy. I still remember that when I was in class 1, my class teacher wrote things on the board. He wiped it. So I rubbed that whole notebook too. Then she wrote something else on the board and rubbed it, and I rubbed it. And I just couldn't understand why this teacher could decide what she wanted to write on the board, So by the time I came in the evening, my notebook was practically torn with this rubbing. And my mother realized that I had not taken anything down because I was just rubbing every time the teacher rubbed, right? I was not a very impressive child, right? So basically, I was his dunce. And my parents thought that's the way it was. And this is how I actually grew, right? So from LKG to 2, I stayed in the bottom of the class. I was in a class of 20 kids. I used to hit 19 consistently without failure, right? And never moving up from that position in life. And the fact is, I believe that's what I had to become. And my father will say he's the Pottan, and Pottan is like in Malayali, idiot or something, I think it's idiot, right? And I was quite comfortable with that. Nobody was too bothered. My parents were also not bothered. My dad used to generally believe that I was not good. My mom seriously was not too bothered. In class 3, I had a new teacher. Her name was Mrs. Naik, right? No believer or hallowed teacher, a simple teacher from a normal Hindu background. But there was something beautiful about him. She picked me up and said, why are you doing so badly? Because as usual in the first exam, I came 19th, But I was really stunned by that question. Nobody had asked me this question, why are you doing badly? Because I was supposed to do badly, I thought. And then she told me something which I could never forget. It's so clear even today. This is how many years back? Maybe close to 60 years back. She said, Mathew, don't you know that you're smarter than your brother? And I couldn't understand why she was telling this lie. But she stopped that whole thinking process by focusing on me all the time. Every answer, tell me the answer, tell me the answer. What did you think? What did you understand? Show me up. Answer book, show me this, show me that. But to cut a long story short, something would happen. What happened was, for the end of the class, I topped the class. Right from 19, I moved to number 1. Because one person was not willing to believe the lies that people told today. Today, if I'm a doctor, it's because of her. For years, I wanted to meet her. She was an astounding woman, And I still remember that we asked to write an essay. What is your ambition in life? People, they want to be a doctor. Some people don't want to be a engineer. Some people, whatever. At that point of time, I wrote, I want to be one of the great men of India. And she was astounded. She called her mother. I want you to come. People normally call mothers because the kids have been bad in class. She said, I want you to read this essay your son has written. Nobody has an ambition to say, I want to be one of the great men of this country. She was so astoundingly beautiful. And I want you to understand, railways is an interesting place. It's like the army. At that point, my dad was not an officer. Her husband was a senior officer in the army, in the railways. And usually they have the tendency to look down on these people, kid. She was not so. I want to make you understand. She was such a beautiful person. She called my mother to make me understand there is something beautiful in your son which I've not seen in any kid before. Why am I telling you this? Because of this truth. There are many, many people who are tied down like this elephant. Do you know the elephant story? It's very interesting. Remember the story. You see this huge, massive elephant, it will be tied by a very thin chain. A chain that is so thin that an elephant pulls that leg, it can easily break the chain. But the elephant never, ever breaks the chain. You know why? Because when it was a little calf, the same chain was used. And when it's to pull on the leg, it is to cut into the tender skin. The memory of the pain was so deeply etched in this elephant that the elephant always thinks, if I pull on that chain, I'm going to get severe pain. Why am I telling you this? There are so many people who live in the world because of the lies that they heard that made them feel so ugly in life. Let me typically tell you this. Here is a girl that is born in India. When she's born, some people may say, oh, another daughter. The child grows up hearing this thing, another daughter, another daughter. Then unfortunately, she is kind of dark. And they'll be in, I don't know in Tamil Nadu, but in Kerala, it's very simple. They'll openly come and say, oh, yo, doesn't have the mother's color. You're very lucky. You come from a country where there's only one color. In India, we have got 100 shades of gray, They'll say, what happened? You went to the sun. Your color dropped by 2 shades. I never figure out which shade they're talking, but they are very accurate about the shade. To the extent I cannot forget the story when one of my wives, can I tell that story of your grandmother? If you permit me. I don't want to fight at home after that. But if you say, okay, since her grandmom was the most racial woman I met in the life. When my daughter was born, she took her in the sun and she turned her this way and that way and all way. Then I asked her quietly, what's the verdict? She said she's fair, but not as fair as my daughter. That is her mother. Now, why am I telling you this? This child grows up hearing this lie. I'm a girl and I'm dark and I'm ugly. I'm a girl, I'm a dark and I'm ugly. I'm a girl, I'm a dark and ugly. She gets married. She's looking really beautiful. She's put on this beautiful sari. And her husband tells her, you look so beautiful. And she says, why are you sarcastic? Have you got that? This is the problem with lies that you hear. You keep telling your child, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, your cousin is better, your brother is better, your sister is better, the whole world is better. The child thinks he's meant to be bad. You keep telling your daughter, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're terrible. I don't know what are the ways you pump these lies to your children's mind, to your kid's mind, or your husband's mind, or your wife's mind. Husband will keep telling your wife, you're horrible. You do not know to drive. You do not know to drive. She's so petrified, she won't drive in front of you, You can't even do this. You can't even use the internet. You're no good. Look at the other women in the world. They're so smart. The lie becomes the truth. And a point comes that she believes this lie. Like I believed this lie when I was a small kid. That's what I was meant to be a dunce. But I want to make you understand, your words can break them from their chain. If you choose not to believe in the story that precedes them, but give people a fair and unbiased chance. Why am I telling you? We decide people in before you meet them. Oh, ladies coming to join our church. Really? Have you heard about her? She's a gossip. You don't even give her a fair chance in her life, and it gets that way. We tend to judge a book by what others say. We tend to hear so much what others say. We try to tell somebody, no, but my interaction with Wilson has been pretty nice. Oh, you do not know the truth. Women will even tell you, I can know them much better than you. Some of women seem to understand people much better than men, and I'm so grateful to God because we don't think too much, Very simple lives, I can understand. Did you say the word a person was looking? Did you see the 1,000 things? We need to, the thing is, remember this one lesson today. Jesus tells you if you want to correct somebody, take out the log from your eyes. Today we don't carry logs, so it's very simple. Take your coolers off, and the world will look in a very different color. You come with your fancy Gucci glasses, which are so dark, the world looks dark. The label may be phenomenal. And the label could be, I come from this awesome family, Maybe in England it become my father was an earl or a lord, and here it is my father was a bishop or a pastor or I don't know what, Or the community. I don't know if you know that. In India we got amazing community. You'll say, I'm from this community, this lineage. I look at people through these glasses. And when I look at through the glasses, I am always, you got to take those glasses out. I want to make you understand the first thing you realize. There are many priceless diamonds that lie lost in this world because you thought they were pieces of rock. I want you to understand this truth. God has given you as a believer this opportunity to bring these diamonds out to life again. They lie as useless stones and rocks till you come and bring them back to life again, I want to look at the verses that speak about what I said. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Do not curse your children. Do not curse your maidservant. Do not curse your husband. Do not keep saying, I got the worst wife in my life. You will get one, She'll become one, actually, if you keep on saying, I am so. Most of the jokes are how miserable you are in marriage, and people keep on getting married, Every joke. I don't know. Women's joke, I don't know how they are. But all the guys are jokes of torture in marriage, Even a pastor, I remember, when he came to give his message, he said, he's supposed to bless the couple, actually. This is a blessing, Marriage is all about different rings. You first have the engagement ring, then you got the wedding ring, then you got suffering. Seriously, it looked like he's going to go to the cross after that, And recently I heard somebody, they do actually do that. At the time of the wedding, it seemed they give a cross. Saying, boss, this is your life, And what I'm trying to say, that's not a blessing. You should get excited, right? You keep telling your wife every day, I am so lucky. I've got the greatest gift this God could ever bring to my life. I told you the fact, the most perfect wife in the world was who? The one wife. One man had no choice but marry one wife. Which was David? Can you tell me? One man had absolutely no choice. Which man was that? Adam. So you have to believe that was a perfect wife, right? What are you shaking your head? Either you think God makes mistakes? No. But then, that wife made a mess of things, right? Because the serpent came in. Every marriage will have the serpent coming in. That doesn't make your wife bad. It just shows the serpent is bad, right? It's your job to pick up the serpent and throw him very early before your wife has a conversation with the serpent, right? I don't know, what was Adam doing there? Watching his wife flirting with the serpent and saying, pretty okay? He should chop the serpent off, Anyway, having said that, whoever says to his brother Raka is fool, that's all, shall be in the danger of the council, but whoever says you fool shall be in danger of hellfire. I want you to understand, this is the power of word that you have. God is saying, you're not entitled to call somebody a fool. How many husbands, raise your hands, have you called a wife a fool? I'm not going to even ask you to tell lies this morning. Right? And how many husbands, wives have told their husbands that you are the most useless person I've seen. But you should all be in hellfire, all of us, right? What to understand, God is trying to tell, when you keep saying, I'm so blessed, I'm so lucky, I trust you with all my life, I find you the most honorable man, I find you the most honorable woman. Even if your wife is a bad cook, start saying, you make the most amazing food. I promise you the food will improve. Because the word of God tells things will change, right? I'm going to tell you that, and let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit. But in lowliness of mind, let each person esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interest, but for the interest of others. Imagine a world like this. Why am I telling this story? I got totally destroyed in life had God not brought Mrs. Naik in my life. I would have been a failure. I could have never imagined I could become something in life. And I want you to understand, each one of you sitting, you got the power to release people out of where they are. You find a kid not doing well, walk up to him, tell him there is something beautiful in you, and I know together we can make it happen. If you find something wrong with your child, sit with them. I always tell there are no bad kids. It's bad parents who did a crazy job with their kids. I want you to understand, the first lesson I want to leave behind with you, your words have power. You can release a person or destroy him forever. The second story. An astounding story, Sometimes heaven conspires to create a miracle that can forever transform our lives. Blessed is the one who understands and acknowledges this gift. This story is so amazing, you will never even believe it's true. I had got my MBBS seat. I was in a state called Orissa. My dad was working there. He was a central government employee. But when the paper came for my admission, there was a little rider. It says you have to have a certificate from the government of Orissa saying that you're a permanent resident of the state. Now, I couldn't get that because I was not a permanent resident. But in the prospectus, there was a definite clause saying, if your father is a central government employee and is posted in the state of Orissa, you are entitled to take admission. This is an act by the government of India. For whatever reason, they chose to ignore that and send this paper, knowing it is impossible to get it. My dad went and met the principal of the college. He said, no, the only person who can get it is the health secretary. Very challenging to meet the health secretary. He not even give you an appointment. So in the end of the day, it was 28th of August. The last date for joining was the 31st of August. And I had given up the whole idea of joining medicine because my dad gave up. Everybody gave up. A friend of mine who was in school, his name was Chandramouli, his dad had got transferred out. His dad was an IAS officer. And I had kind of forgotten about him. And he had joined Loyola College in Chennai. But I didn't know that his dad had transferred back and come into Orissa. And as he was driving his scooter, about 100 meters from my house, his accelerator cable broke. So he had to find a place to keep his scooter. This is a true story. He pushes the scooter and comes to my house and says, hey, Mathew, can I keep my scooter? I said, yeah. I said, what are you doing here? I thought you would have joined medicine. He said, you know what, Molly, I didn't even know that. What are you doing here? He said, I came from my holidays. My dad is over here. And I said, this is a problem. I have a problem with the certificate. And Molly said, hey, you know something? My dad has come back to Orissa. He's the chief secretary of the state right now. That means about all the secretaries, right? She said, why don't you come tomorrow morning? So in my cycle, I went to his dad's office at 8 o'clock in his house. His dad had a little office. His name was Chandrasekharan, very strict man. He said, what happened? I told him, this is a problem. Show me the prospectus. He said, how can somebody make a mistake like this? Sit here, he said, and type a letter. I and my friend Chandramouli didn't know typing, wrote a letter to the health secretary. Dear sir, I am so and so. I got an admission, but because of this problem, they rejected. By lunchtime, he got a letter. The health secretary is pleased to ask you to join back. Can you imagine? Do you believe that God can do the most astounding things in life? If his accelerator cable did not break that day, I wouldn't be a doctor today. I remember this every single time. I want to make you understand, if you think of your life, there is so many times that you would have understood, had it not been for God, you wouldn't be where you are today. You can tell it's luck, you can tell it's chance. It's too much to believe. My friend from Chennai should be driving outside somewhere in my house. He was not planning to come to my house. Seriously. Otherwise, he would have come to my house, right? God forced him to come to my house, broke his accelerator cable to get me this admission. Once I believe that I am only what I am because of my work, because of my effort, I tend to look down at everyone and I feel entitled. Are you one of those people who get very upset if the security guard in your office will not let you in? I've seen doctors walking in, stop, sir, your ID card. Do you know who I am? He is so upset because he feels entitled that everybody should recognize. We had gone once for dinner with one of the industrialists of the city. And this person had invited us for dinner. And when I went in, I said, is this person there waiting for us? And the guy, the manager of the restaurant said, sir, I'm not sure. So when I walked up and located the person, that person was so upset that was that he or she was not recognized. Does it matter in life? Many people, I see doctors in my hospital so upset. I'm entitled for this. I'm entitled for this. I'm entitled to my parking. My parking slot has been taken by somebody else. You should see the kind of problems. I still remember many years back when I was working in a hospital, a very famous surgeon, somebody took his parking lot. I mean, obviously that person was crazy to doing that. He put his car exactly perpendicular that way, and went home. That lady surgeon could not take the car for 48 hours because he refused to bring that car for another 2 days. Why? The entitlement that a place has gone. Some people get worried even if they take their chairs, by the way. Or not, so they get very upset. Oh, this is my bench, this is my chair, which I sit often. I want to make you understand you can live to be a parasite, or a giver. So I live a life reminding myself I'm nothing but a simple mechanic. Why do I tell that? I was once speaking in a conference where all the armed forces doctors were there. And it was a Sunday morning. I was not so excited to be speaking on a Sunday morning. I was saying, God, I just feel so bad. And I still remember the surgeon who went ahead of me. He was talking about his amazing capabilities he had of doing vascular surgery. And I went over there and I told him, I remind myself every day I'm a simple mechanic. I always remind myself that I'm working on God's most precious creation. I said, imagine that I've got one of these absolutely phenomenal, what car? Tell me a brand that you think is the greatest car. You guys are the car lovers, right? What's your dream car? Aston Martin? Okay. And he's driving on the highway and suddenly the car breaks down and then there is roadside mechanic, opens the bonnet and starts poking around. And what will say? Be careful, man. This is real expensive stuff. Do you know what he's doing? And I always remind myself that's how God feels when I'm touching the body that God gives me to touch. Fixing up blood vessels that are ruptured and saying, God must be saying, Mathew, be careful. This is my most precious creation. Every day I'm humbled by the fact that I can only repair. I cannot give a new kidney. You got this little boy here who needs a new kidney, We don't know to make a new kidney. We borrow his mom's sister's kidney and put it over there. And I think, whoa, I'm this great surgeon. Suppose my car's engine is gone. I take your dad's car's engine and shove it there. Whoa, I'm not a great guy. I don't know to make an engine, right? That's what I am. I don't know to make a cornea. I cannot make one cell. But yet, I think I'm so amazing because God heals. If that wound that I cut doesn't heal by itself, he would die because the wound would never heal. There are such amazing properties that I do not know. I can only repair, but God can heal, and I never forget this truth. And every time I treat this, all that is within me says, God, thank you for trusting me. I could have just dropped that kid, but you allowed me to take this kid up in my arms. And God, I praise you for this privilege. I just want to remind you of this flower. This is called the Revelacia. It is a carnivorous parasite. It's an amazing looking flower. Glorious looking flower. But it has got a stink, Nothing grows around it for several meters. There are only two types of people in this world. One are the parasites. Give me, give me, give me all the time. They come to a church. The church is not doing anything for me. They go into a marriage. My wife is not doing anything for me. They go to work. My office is not doing anything for me. The others are the givers. What can I do? What kind of person are you? Are you in your marriage and saying, what can I do? What can I do for my spouse to make his or her life better? What can I do in the church to bring more life into the church? What can I do in my department to make the department a better place? What can I do as a student in my class to make things better? Or am I this parasite? Give me and give me. I'm entitled. Men in India feel a lot of entitlement. Right? I'm not good at cooking. So I won't even go that side. Make sure you make such a bad job, so you also make sure you don't come next time, That's why I'm created. There are some wonderful people who say, I call a spade a spade. I will tell anything I want, but they will never tell anything bad about themselves, the spade, Have you heard these spades? They will not say, I'm a very difficult person. They'll come and say, Wilson is a difficult person, and his neighbor is difficult, and his wife is difficult, and kid is difficult. But he is this, of course, Jesus Christ walking on this earth. I want to make you understand there are two types of world. The sense of entitlement fills you when you forget that everything you had is this amazing gift and the grace of God in your life. If you understand that, I always say, wake up this morning and ask, how can you be a blessing for somebody? How can you be a blessing as a student? How can you be a blessing as a teacher, as a mother, as a father? For anybody on the earth, ask yourself, there is 100 opportunities every day that God gives you to be a blessing if you stop thinking about yourself for a change. And that's why in Galatians chapter 6 and verse 2, Paul tells us, bear one another's burden and so fulfill the law of Christ. How many people are saying, going around, carry my burden? Most people are there, carry my burden. Oh, you're so upset. Most people are upset because they feel their spouse are not doing enough for them. It's not like, how can I make your life easier? It is, you're not making my life easier. How many times in your life you think, can I carry your burden a little bit, brother? I think you're looking so tired. How many times have you seen someone, Wilson, looking tired and gone up and asked him, raise your hands? I'm seriously asking. Wilson, there's something wrong. Sorry, I have the habit of calling Wilson because I knew him before he became a pastor. So just forgive me for that. Some people call him Wilson bro, some pastor, but I just call him Wilson. In heaven, we'll call him Wilson. So right now, preparing ourselves for that. So what I'm saying, how many of you are willing to, seriously, you won't be calling brother and all. You won't even be called dad then. So what I'm trying to say, do you walk up to someone and say, is there anything I can do for you? And so often, they're just touched by the fact. I still remember one of my patients that died. I was feeling terrible. I'm walking up the staircase. A consultant comes to me and said, Mathew, you're looking so different. What's wrong? I said, I'm just feeling a bit down. He said, why? And I said, this patient of mine just died and, I feel so terrible. And he just put his hands around my shoulder and said, I feel so bad to see you this way. Not a believer, not a Christian, not even somebody I knew so well. But I was so deeply touched that he could see that happening in my life. You're so obsessed, you'll never see that. You'll never see the pain, the sorrow in people's life. And he says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Jesus Christ, who being in the form of God did not consider robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, coming in the likeness of men, being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself, became obedient. You don't understand this? It is like one morning you come in, and Wilson, or let's say, any of you, I'm using Wilson's name all the time, so let's use somebody. That's my wife, let me change. And she's wiping, sweeping the floor, She decided that today she's taken upon herself the role of a servant. And as you walk in, you don't know who she is. And you just look at her and go, what are you doing? The church is going to start in 10 minutes and you still not cleaned up the place. Why do you think the church is paying you any money? And she sits and looks and says, sorry, sir, I'll work a little faster. That is the role Jesus Christ took. Although he was God, he did not. You know what he said? The verse you understand. Let this mind be in Christ, who being the form of God did not consider robbery to be equal. It was not wrong. He can get up and say, I'm Dr. Mathew's wife and we are one of the members of the church. Nobody will say wrong. It's not robbery to tell that I am one of the members' wives and I'm just wanted to clean this place because there was nobody. That is what we are talking here. And he's saying, when that is your God, how can you walk around this attitude of entitlement? I was not given respect. I still remember so many people get upset. I went to this function, they didn't respect me, they didn't care of me, they didn't put a chair for me. I was for my younger brother's marriage in Kerala. The pastor walked out because the food was not first served to him. He walked out. They said, no, I was not given. This is your God and this is his servant. Or we call son. If we don't learn to be servants, how can the world teach? And that's why we're called to be servant leaders. We're called to serve, to be an example before people. And we are created to be beautiful people. I always tell my department, I'm here to serve you. It's my job to serve you, to take all the hurdles from your life so that you can serve better. It's not make you miserable because I'm sitting on top. And I just want you to remember this along with the second story. The third story is something very, very touching. I want you to remember, you are reminded for the rules that you break. Douglas MacArthur was a general in the British Army. I don't think he was a Christian, but I just love what he said. Do you know the people in the Bible who broke rules? And we praise them for that? Anyone? Even my wife, I'll ask her, I know. People who broke rules and they were praised for that. Huh? David broke? When? Okay, the showbread, the high priest gives it to David. When he goes there, it was yesterday's showbread, but the priest is opposite. Anything else? The midwives, beautiful example. The midwives have said you kill every child, male child that is born. They go there, they deliver the baby and said, no, by the time we came, the baby was already born. They never killed any one of them. Anybody else? Pardon? I can't hear. Samson, what did he do? He actually did all the wrong things. Huh? No, not Samson. Huh? Rahab, perfect. Rahab was supposed to surrender the spice to the people of Jericho. She didn't. And she was praised for that. Anybody else? The Bible is full of it. So many. Look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Refused to bow down because that was a law. Daniel was praying at all times. Refused to listen to God. Therefore he was done. Mordecai in the book of Esther. The Bible is full of stories which tell us sometimes you break rules because they are all because you honor God or because it's an act of love. You know, I do not know. These ICUs, so the intensive care units, have got very strict rules. You're not supposed to bring a visitor for more than a few minutes. Somebody's sick, you can come there for 10 minutes, then go back, you know. When I was a junior doctor, in the evening shift when I was working in a hospital in Chennai called the Perambur Railway Hospital, there was this young girl that was brought to me. She was 16 years old. She had a condition in her lungs that was fatal. So my chief of cardiology, Dr. Abraham, said, look, this girl will die in a couple of hours. Although she's fully conscious, do not resuscitate her because there is no point in doing that. I went to the ICU. This girl was lying all alone there. And I felt terrible for her. She was fully conscious, but she was absolutely in a state of her pressures were coming down. I went and told the chief sister there, can I let her parents come inside? She said, doctor, not for more than 10 minutes. I brought the parents inside. One sat on this side, one sat on that side. I didn't have the heart to tell them to leave that girl and go. So I told the sister, it doesn't matter what happens. Dr. Abraham may scold me, fire me. No, there may be infection, but please, sister, don't let me do this. So finally, the parents stayed with her for 6 hours and she died in their arms. Very slowly. I still remember her face. I still remember her so clearly. Poor thing, as her eyes would slowly shut down and she would die. Why am I telling you this? You know, at the end of the day, years later, 1 year later, I was walking in the streets of Perambur when an elderly man came and fell at my feet. I was a kid, 23 years old. I was taken aback. I couldn't remember who this man was. And he came and thanked me for that. He said, thank you for that moment you gave with my daughter. Thank you so much. We talk about this over and over and over and over again. Thank you for making this happen in our life. There are so many times you may have sometimes say, it doesn't matter. I may get scolded, but I'm going to do this because this is an act of love. And I want to do this just because I want to do this because this is what God would want me to do. I want you to remember this truth. When I finally leave this world, the only memory that leaves behind is, did I love others unconditionally? No? Did I love others unconditionally, right? And that's why Paul says this beautiful thing. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want you to remember the thing. Whatever you do in love, you may sacrifice, you may preach, you may boast, you may speak in tongues, you may prophesy, you may do the most astounding things, you may have all the degrees in the world, you may be celebrated all over, but you have no love, you're nothing in life. And ask yourself, do people, when they think of you, do they remember me as a person who was always willing to love unconditionally. Do things just because you want to make somebody's day happy. Just don't be so bothered about that money that is lost, and people are so obsessed. You just feel it. Just do it. And just say, God, I just want to do it because it gave me this beautiful opportunity to make somebody's life so happy. The fourth story. Sometimes God leads you some of the most unusual experiences in life where you can see the fulfillment of your destiny. The beginning of many of these things are small, but it's finally in this place that you'll find the purpose. This is the biggest challenge we have with people of the millennial generation. They don't like to start small. They want to start on the mountain peak, Big headache. You start in a small job within one day. I don't find any fulfillment there. It's very challenging to find fulfillment in 3 months in a company where you're starting at the lower rung. What you got to ask is, does God want me to be here? So what happened is, now by the time I finished my college, again in that college, I had the same certificate problem. Domicile certificate came. This time there was nobody to help me. I didn't get admission there. And at that point in time, I got admission into radiology in a college called JIPMA. Quote unquote, JIPMA is supposed to be an institute of national importance. And I got in this place not because I was extraordinarily bright, but because nobody else had wanted that seat at that time. It was such a bad department. And I didn't know about it. And I joined over there. And actually it was like this, 1984, radiology was not the most sought after specialty. And the department of JIPMA was not. It was the most toxic place. I mean, radiology in JIPMA, man, how did you even survive? That's how it was, right? But then I took that place because all things work out for the good of those who love him. My dad was a very tough man. He made my life pretty miserable at home by saying, what are you doing at home? Jobless. Do you think I should be feeding you? I'm fed up. So I thought, radiology, the subject only idiots take, versus my dad, I thought, let's go for that, So that's how I came to JIPMA to do radiology, right? And when I came over there were 3 things. Old X-ray machine, a prof by the name of Srivastava was perpetually angry for no reason. He would only scream. He never talked, he never taught anything. And tons of boxes of films that were just lying old. But the fact is, I had no other place to go. I was a believer also, and somehow in faith I believed this is where God wanted to be. But I want to say, within these dark places often lies priceless jewels. Ask God for wisdom. Ask God for knowledge. Ask God and say, God, you brought me into this place. Now tell me what I'm supposed to do. And I'll tell you what happened in this place changed me forever. Once somebody told me, you need to make gold from dung. For me, the dung came out from these old boxes. One day when I was going through all these boxes, I found the priceless collections of X-ray films. Cases that you'd never see in your life. And they were wow cases. Cases that you'd only see in textbooks. So I decided to sit in the evening and classify all of them. So I classified all of them. Then I started taking classes. Then after that, a diary. And I have to take classes every day, starting from 7 to 11 in the night. And suddenly, the department became very popular. It became so popular that all the people would come. And I, by that time, realized that actually this was a good specialty. It's that I didn't know about it. The chief of medicine called me and said, no, Mathew, you can't be in radiology because the kind of stuff you do, I think it's too demeaning. I said, no, I just figured out I should be right here. At the end of the day, to cut a long story short, things would change. But I wanted to take the story from a story of Tom Sawyer. How many of you know Tom Sawyer's story? Raise your hands. It's the most marvelous story in my life. It taught me so much. Tom Sawyer is this boy whose mom tells him to whitewash a fence on a Sunday morning. You guys know the story? Okay. He hated it. Everyone is having a great time on Sunday morning. They are playing in the park. They're in their cycles, playing football. And his dad says, go whitewash the fence. So as he stands there, the people come to watch Tom Sawyer. And one of the guys says, what are you doing? He doesn't talk. A little later they say, hey, can I do a little bit of that? He said, no, you can't. This is important work. This is the kind of work my mom will not even trust a painter. She knows only I can do it. She gave so much value to that job that after some time the whole crowd were falling at his feet. Tom, please, one brush. Okay, one orange for that. What are the next? Okay, I give you some money for that. A little time later, Tom was sitting under the tree, the whole lot of loot, and all these guys were working for him. How did he achieve it? Because he made them feel the job he did was so important that is worth all glory. If you do not respect the job you do, nobody will respect the job you do. When I came into radiology, one of the things I made people feel was, this is a brilliant specialty. We are there to make you feel good. You come with your problem, let's solve it for you. And over the years, everything changed. I want you to remember this. You know, it's your job, it's God's calling for you, or it's something you do to make a living. Ask yourself this question. Young people sitting over here, you all throw jobs like chewing gum. You never ask this question, God, am I here because you want me here, or am I doing a job for somebody else? You know, there's a big challenge we have. Ask God, ask God, ask God a million times. And if you believe this God's calling for you, then glorify that job to the maximum. You know, whether it's one thing, I have this thing, I say, if I'm teaching a class of 10 kids or I'm speaking for 3,000, the quality of my lecture doesn't change. The quality of my PowerPoint won't change because this is who I am. And I believe that's what God's called you for, excellence. God has given you a spirit of excellence. Let that excellence flow through you, and then you glorify your God in heaven and not show that your God, a God of mediocrity. Okay? And you want to know all things. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to purposes. I'm specifically telling you young people over here, when you're in a difficult job, in a difficult college, in a difficult environment, don't give up and run. Ask God, God, is this where you want me to be? And if it is there you want me to be, give me wisdom. It was in this JIPMA I did the first cerebral angio in the whole history of the college as a postgraduate student. I did the first technique of opening a blood vessel in the kidney as a postgraduate student. I did the first thing for the pulmonary artery as a postgraduate student. God gave me breakthroughs. But for that, I had to make sure I gave my all for the place that God had positioned me. The biggest challenge we find is always complaining. My marriage is bad. Oh, my college is bad. Oh, my mother is bad. My father is bad. That's all we hear, you know. Why don't you sit and say, maybe I am bad, you know? If I change, maybe everything will change. You know, people run away. You want to reach the top of the mountain the day you're here. It takes years. And I'll talk about the next thing, which is even more challenging in life. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lead not in your own understanding. God knew me better than I knew myself. I became an interventional radiologist. I have no problem in telling you today I am among the best in this country. I've got every single thing that God could give me. And that could happen because I was obedient in that place where everything looked terrible. Horrible place, horrible boss, horrible machines. Nothing was good. And yet in that place, God would help me find my solution of truth. Chapter 5. By now I've come to Coimbatore. Right? And I wanted to develop a department of interventional radiology, which could be as good as the best in the world. You know, it's a branch which you don't understand, you don't need to understand. Just remember the fact I want to make a good department, right? But in 1991, the specialty was unheard of. You know, without a dream, you're dead. Do you know the Bible is full of dreamers? Do you know of any dreamer in the Bible who did well? Joseph, the greatest dreamer. Dream. There's nothing wrong in dreaming. Not dream to murder your wife or your husband. What I'm trying to say, dream about something positive. Dream about beautiful things, about how you could be a blessing. And as you dream, God will help you fulfill your dream. Because I believe they come from this thing. You know, what are the environment? The equipment was not the right. The finances were low. The awareness of the specialty was zero. Initial patient poor. And at that time, I got a job in Mumbai. I started at a salary of 6,000 rupees, which was the lowest place employed in 1991 in this hospital. At that point of time, I was given a job in Mumbai for 30,000 rupees. You know, it was so good. But the fact is, when Vimla and I prayed, we strongly felt that God did not want us to move to Mumbai. We are convinced about that. So we said, God, you put a sign. If you get a house somewhere in Mumbai close by, we will move. The house never came. We had no problems. We lived with 6,000. My wife will tell me those were the happiest days of our life. Because we used to eat on the street, the food, little small shops. She said, oh, you remember that food? That chili chicken, it is so amazing. The roadside you eat. Now we can't do that. But what I'm trying to make you understand, that ask God to help you with these decisions. The only hope I had with the hospital was not against me starting this division. Even CMC was not there, interested in that time. They said, no, we don't believe in this. If you want, you can do general radiology. Also, in the between, you can do this. And this was not okay for me, And so, we did. We charged no fees, got materials from friends. Whatever it is, we kept doing, right? We kept working. It was not easy. It was a very difficult journey. When I was doing this procedure, hospital charged a professional fee. I don't remember how much it was. Imagine 1,000 rupees for something I did. And when I met my chairman and told him, sir, my salary is just 6,000 and you're collecting this money, is it possible to get a small percentage of that? He said, because you asked me, I won't give you. I had a choice to walk away. No, but I didn't walk away because I knew God wanted me in that place. And I knew that none of these distractions were the most important thing in life. My focus was to build IR, and I wanted to build interventional radiology. Even if my chairman said some funny things, it didn't matter. So I worked, and I worked. My colleagues in the department wouldn't support me, but it was fine, and I worked. And one day, God would give breakthroughs that was much larger than I ever thought. So it happened like that. Over the years, we became celebrated. We were known all over the country as a group that does this amazing work. And we started publishing. It is very important in medicine to publish and tell the world what we do is scientific. And all these we started doing over and over again. And I was speaking globally all over. And the best in the world would become my partners and friends. Starting from there, with a salary of 6,000, when my chairman said, I won't pay you anything more, it was very difficult times. Vimla knows it. It was very, very difficult times when we did not have money sometimes to finish the month together. But the thing is, we knew God wanted us to be here, and God allowed us. And I went and I started training people all over Southeast Asia. And I used to go from Coimbatore to train these people how to do this procedure in all these places, and all these and all this. And we did all kind of conferences just to tell you that God could change me and give every kind of honor this country could give me. And we trained people and we trained them to do this. What I want to make you understand, in 1990 when I started with no equipment which was appropriate for me. Why am I telling you this? Sometimes you wait on God. Sometimes the initial journey is rough. But 20 years later, it took 20 years later to create India's best environment in Coimbatore. Young kids who sit over here, how much time do you give before you give up and run? 20 months they won't wait today. They're already ready to run. Remember the fact, once you know your calling is from God, stick on. I was the lowest paid worker. I was the most overworked doctor. We took no holidays. Vimla knows this fact. We took one vacation for 10 years. Not one vacation. Not one holiday. When kids come and tell me today, oh, my life is difficult, we knew there was no way. But no vacations, disliked by my colleagues, a very lonely battle, and the worst things would be when a patient would die. When the rest of the doctors would come and tell me, oh, you killed a patient? Are you doing some experimental work? It was so lonely. It is not an easy journey. I want you to understand, very often when God gives you a vision, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy after that. You just focus and you just build on believing this is what God wants you to do. Problems are like a huge rock. But let the certainty of your calling be so strong that you can still see the vision within the rock. I always think of it. I don't know if any of you have seen Michelangelo's Pieta. One of the most glorious statues. Saw his statue of David. Just a piece of rock. But within that rock, his vision was so clear that he'd chip it till it comes. I want you to understand, problems can be huge, but if your clarity of your vision is clear, you will still see that vision inside. Blessed be the God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing. You are called to be excellent. You are called not to be the tail, but to be the head. Humility doesn't come in mediocrity. I've gone this and told in CMC Velo. I went once to CMC Vella 15 years back. All the believers, the most mediocre doctors. All the top guys, they were not considered the great believers. Was the top? No, it was not. And they believed in a simple, stupid concept that humility is mediocrity. No, it can't be. 5 beggars can't sit together and talk about humility. 5 kings can talk about humility. You want to preach humility, first achieve a point where humility is seen in your life. 5 beggars sitting, who's more humble than each other? Makes no sense, man. When you sit up, I want you to understand. If God says He's blessed you with every spiritual blessing and heavenly places, and you're the most average student in class, there is a problem with you. That means you're not doing things the way God wants. You have the spirit of excellence. Confess excellence. Confess excellence. And tell God, God, I have the spirit of excellence. Whatever you do, whether you want to be a doctor, a teacher, a mother who's looking after the children, you're called to be the best. And if you lack wisdom, let him ask God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach. That way, I believe that a believer, a Christian, is called for excellence. I do not believe it's possible for you to be substandard. I believe God has given you. But if you say, no, God, I want to be humble, these things don't work, it won't happen. It's never going to happen. Many Christians are so happy. I was talking to my friend, a young who has to take Bible studies from in Trivandrum. I don't want to mention names in Vellore. And I asked him, hey, what are you doing? I'm a staff in Vellore. I said, how good is your surgical work? I said, come on, change. If you want to be a role model in Vellore, become the best surgeon. And years later when I met him, he said, that taught me so much. I'm among the best today. The fact is only then can you talk and show humility and say, this is everything that God's given me, and I am going to be still the most approachable person. Okay, have you got the next story? Story 6. A beautiful story that touched me and broke me down. It's not my story. It's my son's story. Arun, my son, was one day having a sandwich in a subway in Coimbatore. And there was kids peering through the glass. And he said, Dad, these kids are peering in the glass. And I knew what he would do. It's something even I would do, actually. Just buy sandwiches for them also. So I said, yeah, Arun, I'm sure you bought sandwiches for them. He said, no, Dad, I did something different this time. What did you do? I bought sandwiches and I sat on the footpath and ate with them. And I said, why did you do that? He said, Dad, if I gave them the sandwich, they would have still felt like a beggar. I sat on the footpath so they could feel they were my friends. Have you thought of that in your life? Have you ever thought that many times when we do things, you feel so good, but you still make them feel like a beggar? Sometime back for Christmas, my daughter and my son-in-law was here. So we had this beautiful habit, when all the children were there at least, where we used to buy gifts for everybody in the family and we'll have it under the Christmas tree. But this time for Christmas, when my son and daughter-in-law came, my daughter-in-law, my daughter and son-in-law came, they had gifts for everybody, but for my driver and the maid also, they had the same kind of gifts, packed with ribbons, with paper and all on it. In the morning of Christmas, she called my driver and said, these are the gifts for you. And he started crying. Crying for what? I have given him cash so many times on the Christmas morning, 10 times the value of the gift my daughter gave. But he cried because in that packaging and the ribbon, he felt like he was part of the family. Small things that make them understand how valuable these people are in life. When somebody comes and asks you help, you make him feel like a beggar, you want to say, thank you so much you considered me. I'm so grateful you could trust me enough and come to me. When a student comes and asks for a doubt, do you tell him, wretched person can never understand? We said, it's not a problem at all. I also struggle so much in this area. When your wife is going through a struggle in your life, trying to find out how to work on the net, put a bank thing, do you say, 100 times I've told you, I'll say, I'm so challenged. I know you can challenge, but I am challenged about remembering names. I have got a terrible problem. I'll forget the name in 5 minutes, You are challenged in some areas where you are not. How many times in life do we go out and make somebody feel, you are so loved? Nothing my daughter did, except the fact she made sure there was no difference in the way my driver was treated And we were treated. Ribbons and a package of colored paper. That totally transformed his life. He was weeping, sobbing. Sometimes your children teach you lessons that are so beautiful. Ever since then, I think, am I able to sit in the footpath and eat with them? The best example of the footpath is Jesus Christ. And he said, I just saying, I just want to tell you, I can show compassion. It makes somebody feel poor and unworthy. A beautiful story. I don't know if it's true or not. It's a story I saw on the internet. It's about a little village church. And in the village church, there was a very, very poor family. And the pastor says, for this Christmas, let's all collect money and let's give a gift for somebody who's very poor. Church has some 25, 30 members like this, and everybody is collecting money. And there is this poor family, the so-called poor family, who went overboard. They started doing all kind of odd jobs. They were trying to save money. They stopped, eating a meal, and they saved enough money, which was equivalent to 5,000 rupees. They give it in the church. And that evening, the pastor of the church comes to their house. He had got 6,200 rupees and said, the church has together collected money to make your Christmas happy. 6,200. And that boy writes in that story, we always thought we were poor, but today the church made us realize we were poor. Think about that. Sometimes the things we do can make them feel poor and wretched, and I glorify myself in thinking I have done some wonderful work. Just remember the story of the footpath when you think about this. I want you to look at Jesus Christ. What does he do? There's a leper that comes to him. The leper is an outcast. They will say, unclean, unclean, unclean. And as Jesus is standing over there, the leper comes to him, Jesus heals him. But Jesus does something that nobody would do, touches the leper. To tell him, you're not unclean. I want you to understand, ask God to give you the ability to make a leper feel whole in your presence. The outcast feel whole. The prostitute feel whole. The person who is looked down for a morality feel whole. The alcoholic feel whole, and the drug addict feel whole, and feel that I've got a friend in this person. Jesus says he was a friend of the sinners. And then it says so beautifully, when Jesus raised himself up and saw no one but this prostitute that lying over there, Jesus goes and tells her, to her, woman, where are those accusers of us? Has no one condemned you? She said, no, Lord. And Jesus said, neither do I. The only person there who could condemn was Jesus, the man who had no sin. And he says, no, neither do I. You're as beautiful a person as I am. Ask God to give you that gift. The gift to make you feel amazingly good. Okay, we are coming towards the last stories. This is a beautiful story which I learned very, very late in my life. I told you that I had achieved a lot professionally, and I was right on the top. I was a celebrated guy in my hospital days to feel that I had kind of a big achiever, and I was a flagpole. And like a flagpole, I was visible to everybody as a picture of greatness. But the big problem with the flagpole is very tough to reach on the top. Has anybody think when you climb up a huge flagpole, you'll slippery, you'll fall, you'll die, But a tall ladder, on the other hand, allows people to climb to the top. I just want to think of this little analogy. I mean, these are not from any books. It's just things that God gives me wisdom to explain. Over the years, had become a flagpole. One day, a young consultant comes into my room and says, sir, is it possible for you to help me become like what you have become? And I said, in what area do you want to become? He said, no, in the area of abdominal radiology, ablation, or whatever they wanted. And suddenly I realized that I had become a flagpole where nobody else could reach. And I had to change myself to be a ladder if I had to let others grow. And so over the next 10 years, I became a ladder. That was 15 years. I told people, come to me, tell me your dreams, tell me your visions, and let me allow you to grow on me. It's not easy, by the way, if you think it's fantastic. Some people walk with the gentlest of feet, tender, caring, and ask, are you hurt? Some people will trample over you because finally everybody wants to go to the top. But the reason you're there is to get a soft massage with your foot, you'll be disappointed. The reason you're there is God has called you to be a ladder in this earth, right? You know the beautiful song? All of you know this song. I was just thinking of the song when I thought of you raise me up so I can stand on mountain. This is God in our lives. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up much more than I can be. And I tell this to all the people as I help them. You know, if God has raised me up, I want you to stand on my shoulders so you can grow tall, taller than me. And I'm so excited about this beautiful journey is becoming a mentor in this world, transforming people's life to enable them to become better than you. And we have an amazing department where people have done so well. So I talked about the place where only I was speaking. Now just about everybody in my hospital, my department, speaks all over the country and all over the world. I talk about my publications. We publish 100 times more today. We are the single largest publishing hospital outside a medical college in this country. How did it happen? By just standing by, allowing them to stand on your shoulders so that they could become better than you. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. You can never do that as a flagpole. You can go and say, God made me great. But people want to say, did you hold my hand and help me come up? You are an epistle of Christ, ministered by us, not written with ink, but by the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stones, but on tablets of flesh, that of the heart. You know what's it saying? The only Bible your neighbors read is your life. What are they reading? A selfish man? Using them to grow? To build them up? You get your young fellows to make your PowerPoint presentation and talk as though you did it, or you make it for them so that they can be better than anybody else in the country. Even today, I make most of the PowerPoint for my consultant. Improve them, make it better, be the best, be the best, be the best at all times. The only Bible people read is not the tract, is your life. What do they see? When you die, will they feel sorry that you're dead or grateful that you're finally gone? There are two kinds of people in the world, right? One who give you ulcers, one who get all the ulcers. Think of yourself. Do you give ulcers? I'm a perfectionist. Make everybody miserable around you so that you look very good. Are your guys said, don't worry. I'm there to take you in this journey, right? Chapter 7, Breaking Sandcastles. People have dreams in the initial part. They're very easy to fail. And that is the time you can destroy them forever. When somebody starts to build a dream, make sure you don't break it. Once I was very harsh on, it's a relative term, harsh. Yeah? There was a student training under me. I was working and doing a procedure. And he was not able to assist it well at all. He was making a mess of it. I was getting really stressed up. I lost my temper. I told him to scrub out in front of the nurses. I told him, just leave this place. Don't assist me. You are a disaster. I called another junior to assist me. I did the procedure. When it was all over, his name is Rahul. He has permission. He gave me permission to use his name. And Rahul came to me and said, sir, I'm quitting. You're the most arrogant guy, the most difficult guy to work under. I can't take your insults anymore. Rahul is 30 years old. At that time, I'm 55 or 56. Rahul is a student. I'm the cerebrated interventional radiologist whom people are dying to train under me. They'll give anything. They'll work 3 years, they'll try. At that point of time, I could look at Rahul and say, Rahul, it's your choice. I am strict, I'm tough, but I make the best students. But in that process, Rahul may walk out. Or I can say, Rahul, I'm sorry. I chose to say sorry in front of the sisters. I called and said, Rahul, will you forgive me? I shouldn't have done that. Please don't leave this course and go. I promise that this will never, ever happen again. Rahul said nothing. He didn't say, sir, don't say sorry, it's okay. He just looked at me, said okay, and walked off. I have a colleague of mine, Pankaj. He's very, very close to me. And when I told him so, he started sobbing. He said, Mathew, I can't imagine. You mean he didn't even tell you a word to say that it's You shouldn't be doing that. I said, Pankaj, it doesn't matter. What matters is he stayed back. Today, Rahul is an amazing guy in Calicut Medical College. He has transformed the place. He does everything that we do for the poorest of poor in Calicut Medical College. He is a celebrity. Because one day, I chose to do this. When the choice comes, by the way, my name is in the bottom. Huh? When the choice comes between doing what's right and what pleases your ego, always choose what's right. Soon the sense of fulfillment you receive will fill you with far greater joy than the transient pleasure of an ego that is satisfied. Seriously. Remember this always. The transient pleasure of an ego that is satisfied is not lasting. But the joy and the absolute peace you get when you did something which your Father in heaven would want you to do is the greatest joy that you can get in your life. And I love telling the story. Now with the works of the flesh are evident, their adultery, but I want you to just remember outbursts of wrath. They are not from God. They are not from God. They are from they are from Satan. They are from the flesh. Lord, kindness and goodness should be the fruit that you bear. And this morning I'm just asking you, if you think that my ego, you will not have any stories to tell in your life about the beautiful, beautiful impact that you had in the lives of people. This is the last story. Did it take too long? I don't know. This is the most beautiful story of my life. And I want you to just think of the opportunity sometimes God gives us to display Jesus in your family, right? Our relationships are precious, and we may get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to show how much they mean to us. And don't ever miss this magical moment. This doesn't come when they are in their successful moments. This doesn't come where they're a topper. It'll come when they're failing, when they're broken, when they're totally messed up. And don't miss this up. One afternoon, my son called me. Luckily, I was not in a case. And he said that he'd hit the bumper of a car that was driving in front of him. And he said, this guy is mad. He's very upset, Dad. And I really don't know what to do. I said, can I speak to this man? So I spoke to him. He was very agitated. He was talking about the fact that, this is my second car. My first car is an Audi. This car got hit. I don't know what, but he's screaming. And it took some time, and I just told him, see, I'm so sorry. I'll come over there. I'm a doctor at the Coimbatore Medical Center and Hospital. Please don't worry. I've got a second car, and I'll give you my second car to use it. So after some time, he kind of calmed down. He said, don't worry, it's okay. I'll take care. You don't have to come. So at that time, it looked like that everything was fine. And it looked like I need not come at all. But, always listen to the voice of God, But in my heart, I knew this would be his fault. He would have been texting or doing something on the phone, and therefore you'd have hit it. But at that point of time, none of this really mattered to me. I could have said, you created it, go solve your problem. But the problem was he was in a problem. He was already messed up. He was already in bad shape, But something within me told that I should go and be with him. I put this little child to make you understand how old your son is, your daughter is. Still remember, they're a child for you. They still will be as helpless as a child in situations. You have a choice to walk out on them or go running to them, So I went over there. When I went over there, the story is very different. He was alone. He had got a cop. He was an advocate. He had a lot of influence. The cop had taken his license. There were 3 people screaming at him. He was not doing anything he promised. And he was just standing over there. What I did was, I went and stood between my son and this man. That picture is supposed to me. That's created by AI, so it doesn't look like me. So I just asked him to please forgive him. I told him, I'll do anything you want. Tell me what is it you want. I will take care of every hour. And he started screaming that how I didn't know to bring up a son. I don't know what he wanted, But finally it settled down. He gave back the license. He gave back everything. And it was fine. And they drove their car and went away. And they said, don't worry, we'll take care of the insurance. We have got insurance. But my son started crying and sobbing and sobbing. And I said, hey, Arun, what are you crying for now? It's over, right? And he was crying and telling me, I never understood this verse which says that Jesus took all my sins upon himself. When you were being insulted, when he was screaming at you, I thought, oh, this is what God does for me. He takes all my shame. He takes all my insults so that I can be free. What an amazing story. I could have completely missed it. I could have completely, this is his greatest testimony of the day he understood the love of God as a father. I could have missed it. I had every right to say, Arun, you create the problem, solve it. That's a lesson you learn. But my son learned much more in that act when I took his shame upon myself than any punishment could have. He said, I will never, ever put you in this situation again. I'd never take you through the same journey when I put you to shame. I want you to understand these things. God gives you amazing opportunities. When a staff of yours has fallen and broken, for the matter, sometimes the world will teach you amazing lessons. Any of you heard the name of the person called Satish Dhawan? Anybody knows? Who's Satish Dhawan? He was the director of the space research program in India. That time, Abdul Kalam was the director of the PSLV launches. PSLV-1 was launched. Thousands and thousands, millions of dollars invested. Within a matter of 2 minutes, it went up and exploded into the Bay of Bengal. Satish Dhawan is there, Abdul Kalam is there, the press is there. And Satish Dhawan tells Abdul Kalam, the head of the mission, come, Abdul, you have to give Kalam, Dr. Kalam, you have to give a press meet. We have to go for the press meet. He goes over there, he's standing, Satish gets up on the phone, on the podium and says, we have failed. We have realized that we had a problem. We know it's a massive loss for the country and for the government, but we will continue to pursue. And that's all I've got to say. Comes off. Pull Kalam out of the place. PSLV-3 was a phenomenal success. We became one of the 5 nations in the world who finally could have a genuine space program. There is a press meet. Satish Dhawan comes. He brings Abdul Kalam and says, this is your time. He doesn't tell a single word. He said, Kalam, this is your time. Ask yourself this question. What kind of leader are you? Are you there when your children are failing? They're broken. They're messed up. Sometimes you're astounded the kind of things I see in the secular world. Sometime back, I saw a father bring his daughter to my room. And he said, doc, I think my daughter has been sexually active. Just do an ultrasound and see if she's pregnant. I called that father and said later, see, she wasn't pregnant. But I said, I'm amazed that you just walked in. He said, doc, she's suffering enough. She's gone through enough in life. She's terrified of the fact she's pregnant. She's made her mistakes. If I am not there for her, who will be there for her? How many Christian fathers are willing to do that? How many of them will shout, scream, reject, throw her out of the house rather than say, it's okay? We all make mistakes in life. But I'm there. If everybody fails away, I will stand beside you. When somebody makes a plea for help, first help. Please don't give advices. Women, you're very good at that. When there's a problem, I told you before. That's a lot of time to tell I told you before stories. At that time, you go, he's drowning. He may never have another chance. There will always be time to give advice later. When somebody is drowning, help him. When somebody is broken, help him. Somebody is messed up, help him. We'll get a time. Maybe a month later, maybe 2 months later, maybe a year later. We can sit and talk it over. But that point of time, you're the only person he's trusting. the only last resort he has in life, and go and help. And as he rose and he came to his father, when you're still far off, the beautiful story of the prodigal son. The father doesn't condemn him. The father doesn't say, son, you deserve this. You stole everything from my house. You took my right. You took my property and you went up. I'm glad you learned nothing. He just takes him up into the arm. Let us celebrate. Not for a great successful son, for a guy who squandered everything away, did everything that was wrong. And his dad says, let us celebrate. His brother couldn't understand the truth. And God is asking, are you a dad like that? Are you a boss like that? Are you a brother like that? Are you a person in your place of work like that? Are you a husband and a wife like that? As this, when you're around, when somebody messes it up and comes to you, are you willing to say, come back home? It's there for you. And it says, what man is there that one sheep? It's a beautiful story. 100 sheep. One sheep is lost. He lets go of everyone. Picks up that sheep. Doesn't whip him. Doesn't cane him. Takes him on his shoulders and carries him with more love than the 99 sheep. This is your God. And today I want to ask you this. Are you anything like this? And that's the end of the stories. At the end of it, kindness makes you the most beautiful person in the world. And the only thing that you'll be remembered for, and the greatest way to reveal Jesus Christ in your life. Everything else doesn't matter. All your Bible quotation, the great messages you give, the amazing style that you walk, the cars that you drive, or whatever you do. And that's why Paul would say, now abide faith, hope, love, these things, but the greatest of this is love. The greatest thing that holds your marriage together is love. What I want to make you understand, whatever happens, remember everything else will be healed with love. So these were things that I just gathered together, just added up together from my life. Hope that you are blessed as I take you through the journey. Areas that look so messed up. Areas which I thought God had forsaken, where God was still in control. But the end of it, God is wonderful. He'll fulfill His purposes in our life. And I pray that God, through this that you may understand, God broke that accelerator cable. How crazy. A teacher who came from nowhere. A most difficult college would actually become the turning point in my life. A difficult boss who paid me so badly that one day he called me up and said, I think you have been so badly underpaid and I have to revise your salary completely. He did a revision that was so big, I said, you can't do this. If somebody hears, they'll think it's wrong. And he said, you don't tell me what to do. The same man who told me I will not pay you because you asked for it. God can transform your place. God wants you to be a blessing. Egypt was blessed to Joseph. And I believe God wants each of you to be an amazing blessing wherever you are. Thank you. And God bless you.